Hi, welcome to Florida You Judge. This is Nina Hayden, your host, and today we have City Council member Steve Kornell, who's going to be talking about the decriminalization of marijuana, and instead of having a criminal charge, folks would get a civil citation. Welcome, Council member Steve Kornell.
Thank you, Nina. I'm glad to be here today.
Okay, so let's first start off. Why don't you tell the viewers, how long have you been on City Council in St. Pete?
Sure. I'm going into my 7th year. I just got reelected for my final 4-year term. After that, I will be term limited out. And I represent District 5, which is the very far south St. Petersburg, Lakewood, Ecker College, the Skyway Bridge area of St. Petersburg. And it's a beautiful area.
What made you want to decide to run for City Council?
You know, I never thought I would do politics, but in watching how things were going, I would always say, well, I wish we could do this, or I wish we could do that. The government should do this, or the city should do that. And so I just decided, I volunteered on some campaigns, and out of that I decided to run.
Okay, so we have you here today to talk about the decriminalization of marijuana. Who put that forward on the City Council?
I did.
Okay.
I just got through with a campaign, and in mid-October I was at a debate, and the question was asked, would you support this? And I said yes, I would. And then I thought about it and said, well, if I would support it, I should support it, and let's do it. Let's get it done.
Wow.
And I do want to point out I did it while I was running.
Okay.
So it wasn't a political consideration for me at all.
Okay. So what are your issues concerning the decriminalization of marijuana? What would you like to see take place? The
biggest thing is that I feel strongly that a young person who uses marijuana should not have their life ruined. It affects, when we criminalize it, it affects so many areas of their lives. And to be clear, we're talking about small amounts, and it's defined in many other statutes across Florida as less than 20 grams. So we're not talking about bales of marijuana. That's another story. You know, that's another issue. But small amounts, it can affect your employment opportunities, your housing opportunities, your student loans, things that go far beyond the punishment. So I think my proposed legislation basically makes the punishment fit the crime.
So let's talk a little bit more about what the decriminalization would actually entail. Tell the viewers a little bit more about that.
Well, basically, it would take a crime that now you could get arrested for and make it a civil citation, which would be like similar to a speeding ticket.
Okay, and how much would the civil citations be?
Those details we're still working out. We've had one committee meeting. Our staff is going to come back this Thursday to our Public Services and Infrastructure Committee and provide us a report with some further details, and we're going to give them some input, and then they're going to go back and draft an ordinance.
Is there anybody else in the state that's doing this type of thing? Any other counties?
Several have. I have the list here. I'm going to look at it. Leon County, Miami-Dade County. Leon County is the oldest one.
Okay.
They did theirs in 2012. Miami-Dade County just did it in June of last year. Hallandale Beach in August of last year. Key West in September of last year. West Palm Beach in September. Broward County in November of last year. Palm Beach County was scheduled for a final vote in December, so I believe they passed it. And Alachua is having discussions, Monroe is having discussions, Pinellas County, under the leadership of Commissioner Ken Welch, is having discussions, and we'll have a meeting in March to discuss this issue. So several jurisdictions, counties, and cities have already done this.
Speaking about Pinellas County and the commission, what your resolution states, and the resolution was passed when? Was that in this past December 2015, or when was that passed?
It was. I believe that meeting was in December.
Okay. So the resolution states that the county commission, you are suggesting to the county commission that they also decriminalize marijuana countywide, and you're giving them 90 days to respond. Is that correct?
Well, that sounds a little directive. It's not quite. Basically, the discussion was, when I got into this, I found out Commissioner Welch had also brought it up on a county level. And I think all 8 of our St. Petersburg City Council members agreed that if we could do it on a county level, it would be better because it would be more uniform across the county. Okay. So what we did was a resolution in support of the efforts of Commissioner Welch. And we said within 90 days, we'd like you to consider this. But we also wanted to be clear that if for some reason the county commission decides not to move forward, the city of St. Petersburg intends to move forward. And nobody on our council voiced major objections. And I want to point out we've had 2 new council members come on since that time. So I'm not speaking, they weren't in that meeting, so I can't speak to what they think about it. But at least 6 of our current council members, including myself, were in favor of some form of this. And it was just a matter of working out the details, which we've now asked our staff to go back to research for us and to bring back proposed legislation at some point so that we can hash that out and decide what we think is the best ordinance for St. Petersburg. And I think where we're going to end up is on February 25th, we're going to reach a proposed ordinance and then pass that on to the county and say, here's what we think would work very well, and here's what we think is fair. And to me, this is an issue of basic fairness. I think if you, I think there's a lot of disparities in the sentences that are given for the same exact crime. And I think for sure those depend on wealth, your level of wealth. I think absolutely. I think if you can afford a very expensive private attorney, you get less penalties and sometimes no penalties at all. And I think if you can't afford that, you get slammed really hard for it and have outsized punishment for that crime. And I think that's unfair. And as a city council member, I don't control the sentencing, I don't control the courts, but I do have some say-so over the ordinance that we have in our city and how we enforce that. So that's what I'm aiming to correct. And I think our justice system should not depend on your level of wealth. It should depend on the crime and what's fair.
Right. Speaking of Commissioner Welch, he also made a statement I was reading, I believe it was in the St. Pete Times, that he said that he believed there were some racial disparities in the marijuana arrests that he had concern over. What's your opinion on that?
I think that's very likely. I know on a national level, the ACLU presented at our meeting back in December national statistics that show that there are disparities based on race. Now, I want to be very careful with that, because on a national level there may be disparities based on race, and on a local level it may be based more on income level. You know, we want to make sure those same disparities exist on the local level, and I know that Commissioner Welch has talked to the sheriff about providing some data in regards to that. And I have also asked our St. Petersburg police chief to try to bring us that data. So we'll look at the data and we'll try to make a correction. But I just think it's fundamentally un-American that you can have 2 people do the same exact crime, the same exact way, both get charged, and one get completely no record and be completely free and be able to move on to any job that they want, and the other person gets slammed really hard because one was rich enough to afford an attorney and the other one was not. I think that is fundamentally unfair and really not what our city, St. Petersburg, is about. We're moving towards correcting the errors of the past in a variety of ways, and I think this is one more way of moving us forward.
Let's talk about, I had a chance also to read that some of the other counties or cities that have implemented this civil citation replacement instead of a charge for marijuana, if it's $100 or so, they sometimes are saying that folks aren't paying it, and what are the penalties, or how can you correct that if there's an issue, if folks think, well, you know, maybe it's not that big of a deal, I just have a civil citation and I'm not going to pay it. Do you see any cures for that, or do you have any answers for that in terms of, would you enhance the penalty if they're not paying it, or what's your suggestion about
Those are all possibilities. We asked our staff to look into that. The lawyer from our police department brought that issue forward.
Okay.
I think it's an issue for discussion, but I think it's an issue, I think that's a detail to be worked out. I think that has no bearing on whether we should decriminalize small amounts of marijuana or not. I think we should do it, and I think the rest is clerical kind of details of how you implement it. And we're going to have further discussion on that. So I don't have the exact details right now. Now, I have no problem if we make it a higher penalty if you get more within reason. Mm-hmm. I have no problem. I'll give you this example. We give out a lot of parking tickets in St. Petersburg. If you drive downtown, you probably know that.
Right.
And we manage to collect those, and we have a whole system for doing it. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that's I think that for anyone to say that's a reason not to do it, I think would be a smokescreen. And I think I'm not accepting that.
Right.
We can do it. I do agree it needs to be discussed. I do agree it needs to be worked out. We need to determine how we're going to do that. I mean, I would not like to see someone get 50 civil citations for smoking marijuana and not pay any of them. I think there should be some penalty for that. and there's a variety. We also discussed drug treatment. And again, I'm not sure that everybody who smokes a joint needs to be forced into a residential drug treatment program, but I think that's a fair question.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair discussion. Are there some ways to use the law and nudge people towards treatment? I think that's a much better way than arresting them, for sure.
What about any comment from St. Pete Police at all about this potentially passing?
Well, they came.
Okay.
They had their attorney present, and I want to say this: kudos to our police department for being a constructive participant. They didn't come and just say, "Oh no, we don't want it. Leave us alone with this." They came and said, "Here's some concerns that we have about it, and let's talk through these." So I'm not hearing a no from them. I'm hearing a let's work it out. One of the issues they brought forward was, what if you have multiple offenders who offend, people who do it multiple times and get multiple civil citations?
Right.
What mechanism is there for collecting that?
Right.
Fair discussion. I'm great with having that. What I would have been very opposed to is just a no, we don't want it. Drugs are bad, leave us alone, everything's good. Clearly everything's not good. Clearly there are some issues. I don't necessarily think that's with the officer, the men and women on the street. I think it's more with our society and our court system. But I think we also owe our citizens a chance to have fairness and equality, and this, I believe this helps do that. We also had a very vigorous discussion. I got several phone calls. I talked about institutional racism, and I had some calls from some of my police officer friends and said, "Are you saying the institution of the St. Pete Police Department is racist?" And I was like, absolutely not. Let's talk about it. So I think just having those discussions and just sparking that dialogue is positive, is very good, is very, very well done. And we just celebrated Martin Luther King Day, and Martin Luther King violated the law. And Martin Luther King said there are times there are unjust laws. And I think this, when you look at racial disparities and income disparities in these kinds of arrests, I think that falls right into that category, and I think we should correct it.
So where do you see this going? When do you see this potentially passing?
Well, first of all, let me say, even though the resolution, if you just read it, it sounds very like we're trying to command or boss around the county commission. Nothing's further from the truth. We see them as our partners. I've had a fantastic discussion with Commissioner Welch. But I also want to make clear to the other county commissioners that if somehow they do not feel this is a good idea, we feel that it is, and I'm obligated to my citizens to do what I think is the right thing. So just wanted to make that clear. But we're working in partnership. We're going to have a discussion on January 28th, this Thursday, at our PS&I committee at 9:15. And let me encourage any of your viewers to go to our website, stpete.org, if you want to know what's happening in the city. There's the agendas for all our committees and our council meetings. So at 9:15, it's also televised on channel Bright House 641, I believe is the right channel. Mm-hmm. So you can watch this discussion, so you can know how this is forming and what's going on with this. But we're going to have a presentation from our legal department on their research so far and some information they've gathered.
Okay.
And then out of that, we're more likely then to try to work through some of the issues like the fines and give them the information so they can go back and draft an ordinance. And then on February 25th, we would like the draft ordinance to come back. Okay. We'd like what I'm hoping is that City Council will agree and a majority will vote for it. But not to enact the ordinance at that point, but to pass it on to the county at that point. And then if the county, I think the county votes will be there, but if they're not there, then we're ready, we have our ordinance prepared to go, then the city of St. Petersburg can go ahead and enact its own ordinance. Or we've had a chance to give input to our partners at the county about what we'd like to see in that ordinance.
Okay. Excellent, excellent. And you heard from Councilman Kornell yourself. If you want to follow what's going on in the City Council agenda, just go to their website and take a look at the agenda, follow it, and you'll be able to see how things progress. Thank you so much, Councilman Kornell, for coming on Florida You Judge. And we look forward to potentially maybe in the future seeing you again, maybe to talk about this issue or other issues that are happening in St. Pete, in the St. Pete area.
Nina, thank you for having me. I'd love to come back. And let me just encourage any of your viewers to call if they have ideas or concerns about the city. Call the office. You have a really responsive city council right now, and I'm a part of that, but and a very responsive mayor. So call our office, 893-7117, if you have a concern, a complaint, an idea. We want to make the city better, and we want to listen. And I'm very much about that. I love when I get ideas from the citizens, so feel free to call me or email me anytime, and I'll be happy to help you any way I can.
Excellent. And thank you very much, viewers, for tuning in. Look forward to another show that's coming up very soon. Take care and God bless.